Quickly about SDWF, Safe Drinking Water Foundation's registered charity, focused on educating leaders of tomorrow on the importance of water quality for all. If you are interested in getting more information about the organization or looking at our water kits, please check out our website. So what we're doing here is we have a competition going for students across Canada, open to K-12 students, investigating water issues in their community with 10,000 or more, with big prizes to be won, valued at $6,500 to the top K-8 class and the top 9 to 12 class. So we've been working towards this community education. At this point, we are expecting you might be chosen your water issue, and perhaps you've created your survey and distributed your survey and started collecting your baseline data on your water issue. So now what we're going to do is you're going to use that information, that baseline data, and plan a some kind of ways that you're going to engage your community and educate them on your water issue. So once you've completed your survey, you can use that to get a knowledge base of where your community stands on this issue, what their attitudes are, what they know about it, if anything, and now you can use that to focus your efforts on educating them about where their water comes from and how and whatever your issue is. So again, we're trying to find quantifiable positive change, so that's something that you can measure, whether that is liters of water conserved or perhaps surface area of impermeable surfaces made permeable. And so with your baseline data, you're going to come up and give some information to your community about your issue with some exact numbers on how they can make a change and how much water that will save or how much surface will be made permeable. And just to reiterate that it's important that your community knows where their water comes from, and that should be in your survey data. That should be a question that you're going to ask everyone. Do you know where your water comes from, or where your water comes from, and see if they know what it is. And you will be able to get a number on that, and then throughout your education of your community, you're going to really drive that message across of the importance of knowing where your water comes from, and you can tell them where their water comes from. And then you can note the change in how many people knew before you did your education and how many people know afterwards. So it's really important that everyone that you educate fills out your survey before they hear what you have to say. And that's just to get unbiased data, your baseline data, to get a clear representation. Because once you've gone through your education events or materials, then they already have been informed and you don't know what they thought beforehand, and you can't go back. So it's important to keep track of everyone who takes your survey and taking down names and emails to make sure that if they took your first survey, that you are able to get them your follow-up survey to see how you've changed attitudes. So how can you do this? How can you get your message across? So try and reach your audience in a fun, informative way. So if you make it interesting, entertaining, more people are likely to want to take part in it. And some different ways you can do it. You could have an event, poster session where people can come and go and check out your information and your issues, and you can interact with your community that way, or through formal presentation, or mailing out or handing out physical education materials like pamphlets or brochures, or you can make a video that people can watch and you can distribute that way. So we just talk a little bit about each of these. So what you're going to do, how you're going to determine the best way is to understand your audience, understand your community based on who took your survey in the start. You can see if it was students or if it was your parents, what would be interesting for those two groups, and try and branch out from that and see how you can get the general community involved through some kind of event, community event that general community is going to want to come out and learn about your issue, and they can take your initial survey, and then you'll have an even larger group to use and to educate. So a poster session is a come and go event where it could be part of a bigger event where you have entertainment or something like that, but you'll have your information posted around the room, and people can walk around and read your materials and ask you questions, and you can ask them questions. It's really informal, so someone could come for 5 minutes, or they could come for an hour or more, or whatever time they have, and however interested they are. And this is a good opportunity for students to interact with the audience and go and distribute your surveys, and you can have snacks and refreshments. And again, it's just important to note that everyone who comes into your event should have taken your first survey, and that you keep track of who they are and what demographic they are, and how you can reach them to fill out your follow-up survey. So you can have a formal sit-down presentation. Could be at an assembly or a specific event for that purpose, where your community and your target audience would come in and sit down, and you could do a PowerPoint presentation or some kind of example or demonstration. And it's more of a time commitment because you want people to be there when it starts and stay the whole time. And then afterwards, people can come up and ask questions to you individually, or they could raise them to the group as well. So this is just determining some ideas of what would be best to get your community involved. What do you think would be the most effective? You could make some informational material, like leaflets you could hand out. You could hang posters around your school and community. It's less direct, but you could make them interesting so that someone who saw it might want to ask questions, and then you could have your contact information on there, or some way that they can contact you to take your survey and get involved that way, and then they can learn more about their issue. It could be harder for them to ask questions, and this would probably be more of a supplemental thing, maybe before your event or a poster session or whatever you choose to do, just for your community to get curious about your issue and want to learn more and want to be a part of that positive change in your community. Another idea which could be kind of fun for your class to do is come up with a video. It could be a skit or demonstration or something like that, where you're clearly showing the issue in your community, and you can talk about different ways to fix that issue and what people can do to make the change in their lifestyle, so it's going to be a positive impact. And this might be a little bit tougher for making sure that everyone takes your survey. If a video is just being distributed, it could be harder for them to get the survey. But if you did this at an assembly or something like that, you could make sure that your survey is distributed before people see the video. And this one people might be more interested in in watching a video rather than reading about it or going to an event. It could be quick and easy and more interesting, and it could be quite a bit of fun for you guys to make your own video as well. So we discussed this a little bit, but if you hold an event, it's really important that everyone who participates fills out one of your surveys before they hear your information. And that's just so that they can contribute to your baseline data and that you can see a stronger, or you can see more clearly the impacts you have had and the quantifiable change that you've made. And the more people that take the survey, the more this will help your report, and the more it shows how you are taking action. And then afterwards, making sure that you keep track of who takes your survey with names and maybe some other details about them, and to get an email or some way that you can follow up with them to take your follow-up survey after they've been to your event or seen some of your educational materials. So there's many different ways, and every group will have a unique way of reaching their community. You might have some similar styles, but it's up to you to determine the best way to get the most people involved and to make it the most fun and interesting, so that people are going to want to be involved, and that you can reach out to the general community and get more people involved. And it might be a good idea to have a few events over some time, or maybe an event and some material handed out to different people. And then again, just making sure that everyone has taken your initial survey and that you have a way to get your follow-up survey to them. Yeah, so this is really just some ideas about how you can get involved. Does anyone have any questions about this topic, or questions about the competition in general, or does anyone want to discuss any ideas that they've had for ways to engage their community? No questions? Is this something that's new to everyone, or have people been working on this project yet, or just getting started, or where are people at in this? I think so the question is, when does the contest end? And I believe the reports are planned to be submitted in the beginning of February or end of February? February 19th is when we're expecting the reports to come in. So there's still time left, plenty of time. And if you need to look at any of our past webinars, they should be posted to our website, or you can send me an email and I'll send you the PDF slide deck that you can go through and learn about what we talked about on investigating water issues and stuff you need to know for creating your surveys. And any specific questions can be sent to me or Nicole. And put our contact information up here. So direct any questions you might have to us.
Hi, this is Nicole. I just had a couple points that I wanted to clarify. So basically, you want the people who take your follow-up survey to be those who you educated and who took your baseline survey. So, for example, in a school setting and in assembly, it'll be mostly the same students, but you might want to say something like, if you weren't here for the baseline survey and for the education about water, then please don't fill out a survey, because you don't want to muddy your results with people who didn't hear your information and who weren't motivated to take action. At community events, you might get more of a variety of people, so it might be even more important to say, we only want those who were here for the education part and filled out the preliminary survey to take the follow-up survey. Also, Tim gave you a number of different ways that you could educate the community. Be creative and maybe combine some of those. So maybe you want to put on a play at the end of a poster session, or maybe you want to have a video as part of the poster sessions or things like that. So there's lots of ways that you can combine these things. You can also hand out leaflets to take home during any of these events for them to have information to refer to. You might need to hand out like worksheets even for them to track the times that they spent showering and to calculate the liters of water that they use, or things like that. You might want to also help your participants in what they're doing. So for example, if your goal is to have them use less water to shower, maybe you can partner with a local hardware store or some kind of store that will provide maybe some sponsored low-flow shower heads, or maybe, at cost or lower cost. There's lots of different things that you can do and think about in terms of engaging your community and also helping them to change behaviors and take action. Yes, as Tim typed in, note that it's really important also to have pictures and videos. That's one of the things that we'll be judging based on. We're going to be doing a list soon of the judging criteria in general and putting it on the competition portion of our website. But the types of things that we'll be looking for is like the amount of water conserved, or the amount of impermeable surface made permeable. We'll be looking for how many people you educated, whether you educated a variety of ages. So doing it at your school is great, but also doing something in the community will get you more points. The number of people that you educated, it'll be things like how creative you were, how motivating you were, like whether we think that the change will be sustained in the community, or things like that. I'll put together a list soon and put it on the website, or have Tim do that. In the contest currently, that was a question that was asked, how many groups are currently in the contest? And currently I think our number is 37 groups across Canada. And there will be one winner from kindergarten to grade 8 and one winner from grade 9 to grade 12. So out of the 37 groups, I believe there is, 2 will win. So 2 will win big prize packages. So this is definitely, you definitely have a shot, and definitely put some time into this, I would say, because the prizes are worth $6,500 each prize package. As you know, that's that refillable water bottles, the water bottle filling filtration system, and also educational kits from our organization. So most definitely worth giving it a big shot, because your chances could be fairly good if you put quite a bit of effort into this. Are there any other questions? I want to point out that on the resources part of our website about the competition, we've now added some information about the number of liters of water that are used when you're getting a bathroom tap, when they're using a shower with a non-low flow shower head versus with a low flow shower head, and also different types of toilets, like the ones that conserve water versus the typical types of toilets, like the amount per flush, different things like that. So take a look at that. If you need any help making up any worksheets or anything like that, or calculating things out, definitely let myself or Tim know, and we can help you. We can put time into it and help you with making worksheets and things like that.
Hello. I'm just testing out this program for the first time. I'm just wanting to make sure you can hear me.
So I'm sorry that we didn't hear Argyle speak. We had our speakers off because when we're both talking, that's when you get the echoes when our speakers are on. So unfortunately we didn't hear Argyle speak, but Argyle said that they have 4 students and they would like to do 2 projects. And I would say that if the students are different students, so each student can only submit, like, be part of one project, but if there are 2 different groups of students, so no overlap, no student that's working on both projects, then I would say that's okay. You might want to consider putting your efforts together, though, because you can have a project that encompasses more than one point. So, for example, if one's doing tap water quality and the other one's doing bottled water, now remember, though, the parts that we're judging on are quite specific. We're judging based on the liters of water conserved, the meters squared of impermeable surface made permeable, and so the water saving devices like low flow shower heads and things like that, those go into the category of liters of water conserved. So when we're marking, when our judges are marking, we're going to be looking for either liters of water conserved or surface made from impermeable to permeable. It's great that they want to maybe have people stop drinking bottled water, stop having water bottles that are not reusable, and to study tap water quality, but those are things that go into your project. You have to have one component or the other for the judging for the impact. But you can have different different topics in your project, so they might want to work together so that they can get more participants overall. Also, so that they can, have events that are bigger. So I would say that probably you want them to work together, but as long as there are no students who are overlapped, I would say technically based on what we believe the rules would be, that that would be fine as long as there aren't any students working on both projects, but you might find it easier for them to work together. So you're thinking about doing one project about bottled water versus tap water and the need for upgrades to your water treatment plant. That's great to have that information out there. I would ask, though, how you're going to show the liters of water conserved or the impermeable surface made permeable. So you can do that as part of your project, but then you also, at least in order to have a chance at all of the marks, you also need to focus on water conservation or on impermeable surfaces made permeable. So this can be part of your presentation and also where your water comes from, things like that. But then you also want to focus on how important it is to conserve water and be able to track that change. Yes, so the focus would be about water conservation, tracking changes. That's good. So yeah, you want to track that, but then you have hopefully you have a captive audience. You can teach them about where their water comes from. You can teach them about possible pollutants in that water. You can teach them about the need for upgrades to your water treatment plant, about not using bottled water, things like that. We're thinking that the report, we haven't totally decided yet, but we're thinking that the report would be composed of certain factual questions you need to answer. For example, how many people you educated, how many students were involved, things like that. Then also you'd have about a 750-word write-up about what you did, and you'd also include pictures and or video. So if you educated on more things like that, that's where we're going to see more of the impact and lasting change and creativity kind of category come in. So as long as you also have a component of water conservation, you're tracking how many liters are saved, or impermeable surface made permeable, you will also be able to get points in that category. The question is whether people will have to track their water usage over a long period of time. That we have not really decided on concretely. Basically, the criteria will be the liters of water conserved. So I think that if you had maybe tracking over a week would show a change, like over a day doesn't really show a change. You know, sometimes people just don't shower for one day, but if you showed a change in the length of showers, for example, for a week before the education, then a week after the education, that would show more of a change. So what we're going to be calculating is the liters of water conserved, but that being said, like a larger proponent that the judges will be judging will be the kind of like the motivation, the creativity, how large the project is. So it's important to not just have it be like one day that people conserve water, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a long period of time. I would say a week, like comparing how many times people are, how much time people are spending in the shower for a week before the education, a week after, or whether people are turning the tap off when they brush their teeth before for a week and after for a week. I think a week would be kind of a good guidepost, but if you want to do it longer, that's great, but I think that a day wouldn't show enough change. Okay, that's great. So like Tim said, a video can be very interesting to show people. Make sure that your video, since you're only educational things, that it would include the larger things that you want to teach people, like about your water treatment plan and well water, but also motivates people to conserve water. And also that has that very vital component that everybody's project has to have about where the community's water comes from. That's great. Yes, all projects have to have a component of where the water comes from, or you don't get marks for that category. So, like I say, no matter what your topic is, no matter what else you're including, that is a component that you have to include. You'd be surprised. I think you'll all be surprised when you do your preliminary survey about how many people in your community don't know where your water comes from. So you'll find that that is a vital component. And we're looking for how many people at the end know where your water comes from. So make sure that you're very clear in educating them and that you tell them that it's important to know. Maybe show them a map. Maybe talk about different things that can pollute your water source. And at the end, make sure that almost or 100% of people know where your drinking water comes from in your community. So our job is asking where the web page is that they find out everything they need to include. Unfortunately, that hasn't been done yet. The rubrics are right now with some of our contacts who will be looking over the rubrics and making sure that they seem good, that there's no changes that need to be made. But what we're going to do soon, hopefully within the next week, is that we will be putting on our website a brief outline of the types of things that we'll be looking for and the kinds of questions that you'll need to answer in the report. So kind of like what it will look like and what we'll be looking for. So hopefully within the next week we'll do that. I'm just going to have Tim put a link into the chat box of the competition webpage and also the competition resources webpage for you. 788 says that you have a class transition and, okay, so you have a question from another class, 8KO, lots of letters at your school. They have a question, how can the students fix the polluted water dealing with First Nations and others? We need a boil water advisory in the past week in our community about half an hour away. Well, that's unfortunate, and many First Nations communities have been under boil water advisories for quite some time, some as long as over 10 years. I don't really know like what students could do directly to prevent boil water advisors. I think it's a matter of educating the youth so that they can then educate the community. And when everybody is aware of what's going on and everybody starts to be more knowledgeable about water issues, then hopefully things will change. Also, the youth today are going to be the engineers, the mayors, the prime ministers, the premiers, next decade, in 20 years or however long. And so they, if they're well educated about water now and really know that it's an important issue, and it's only, I think, going to become more important, then they will make the good decisions for their communities, for their provinces, for their countries, and they will learn more about water treatment, learn more about science, things like that. So I think right now it's a matter of spreading the awareness and educating others. When the whole province or the whole community or the whole country really puts pressure for change, then hopefully that's when things will happen. Not yet, but soon those pages will, soon they will have information about what you need to include, hopefully within the next week. We're going to be putting outlines about what you'll need to include in the report and also the criteria on which you will be judged. You're welcome, Argyle. 788, I think you need to perhaps finish that question, please. Oh, okay. One student is wondering how much of the world's water is unsafe now. Our organization deals basically only with Canadian issues, so I'm not certain. I've heard there's different facts, I think, in different websites, but I'll see if Tim knows anything.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the number would be. I've heard before that somewhere that only 3% of the world's water is fresh water that we can use for drinking water, and of that, only about a third of that is surface water, which means it's easily accessible. So we're really looking, it's kind of a small amount that we can actually take fresh water from and turn that into drinking water. And every drinking water source can be made safe. I'm not sure what the number of unsafe sources would be. It would be different depending where you are. But that's a great question. I think that's something maybe is a class it could be fun to look into and try and talk about some different global water issues. It's a great question.
I found a link to the UN Water World Water Day International Year of Water Cooperation Facts and Figures page, so I'll put that in the chat. I'm seeing here that 783 million people do not have access to clean water and almost 2.5 billion do not have access to adequate sanitation. 6 to 8 million people die annually from the consequences of disasters and water-related diseases. And there's a lot more information on this page, so I'm going to put the link into the chat.
That's another great question. I think the biggest impact would probably be from industrial uses of water. We use water for a lot of things. A lot of our industry uses water for cooling and stuff like that. We do our best when people do their best to put it, when they leave, when the water goes out, try and make it as safe as possible. But lots of places in the world, that's not the case. So I would say probably industry, so making things, manufacturing. Agriculture as well plays a big role in that. especially from the bacteria from agriculture gets into the water, and some of that bacteria can be pretty bad for people to drink, and that's why we need to treat it, and that's why people have to boil their water sometimes, is to kill off that bacteria from agriculture. So, and that would depend a lot on where you are. Every country has their own kind of unique sources of pollution that would be more prevalent than others, but it's another great question.
I don't think there will ever be a day where we're all completely going to have safe drinking water. I think more so there will be problems with distribution in terms of where the safe drinking water is, and also for some regions and countries the amount of resources that are available for safe drinking water. Like, for example, a lot of countries in Africa or poor countries, they don't have the resources to treat their wastewater. They don't have the technology or maybe the manpower or maybe the funds to create as safe of drinking water or to treat all their drinking water. Right now, we know that there's a lot of water shortages in California, for example. So there will be different parts of the world that are really lacking safe drinking water, and whether that means that people won't live in certain places or whether that means that water will need to be transported to other places. I'm not sure how the world of the future will deal with that, but there will definitely be some issues, I think, more so in distribution than in overall amount. Remember that there's a water cycle and that all water is basically recycled, reused. The water that we're drinking today existed on the planet when there were dinosaurs walking on the planet. I think, again, in terms of the best way to keep our drinking water in Canada safe, it would be educating people, so educating the citizens, making sure that there is adequate awareness so that there is adequate funding put towards water treatment plants and the upkeep of them and the manpower to run them and things like that, and training for people who run them. So I think that if we put a great importance on having safe drinking water, then we'll put more funds toward that, we'll put more efforts toward that. So raising awareness so that it becomes a priority. These are questions that we don't really know the answers to off the top of our heads, but we can do Google searches as your students can as well. It would be good for them to research more into this. But your next question is, what country has the most safe water and what country has the most unsafe water? So I just looked up the top 10 countries with the best tap water, at least according to one web source, is New Zealand, Germany, Sweden, United Kingdom, Italy, Austria, France, Luxembourg, Norway, and Switzerland. I know that it said that in Canada we have a lot of fresh water, like we're freshwater rich compared to the population we have, so we're lucky in that sense. I think unsafe water, when you think of unsafe water, the first place you think of is African countries. I think that people at one point didn't know what was making them sick. The history of medicine is also really interesting, and actually I'm hooked on one TV show right now that's about the history of medicine, The Nick. So it's very interesting what doctors used to do, how the medicine system used to be, things like that. So at one point, people didn't really know what was making them sick, and it was discovered that it was a disease in the water. So if you look at our Operation Water Health program on our website, you'll learn more about that. There's actually a PowerPoint about cholera and Dr. John Snow and how it was discovered and how it was traced back to the cause. So I would recommend that you go over that with your class of students, because that would be more informative than I could be off the top of my head, unfortunately. So I think probably people were getting sick for a really long time is my guess, but medicine has really evolved. Every year, more things are learned than I would say in the last 10 years combined maybe. So before, people were probably getting sick, but they didn't know what was causing it. So it was more so that they didn't know that it was the water or that it was an aspect of the water, and now they know more about medicine, so they can trace it back to causes like certain bacteria or things like that or viruses in the water. So I think that it became more well known just as more diseases caused by water became well known. So I put the link in the chat box for our Operation Water Health Program so that you can learn more about diseases that are caused by water and also how different diseases were traced back to their source. Also, I actually offer, through the virtual library, but I mean, you have contact with us, so it doesn't matter if it's what, but I offer webinars or Google Hangouts or Skype sessions for teachers with their classes about questions like this, where they send me the questions ahead of time and I create a PowerPoint that answers the questions. So if you have a lot of questions, we could have a session in this webinar room where I could have a PowerPoint and have research ahead of time and have hopefully better answers to the questions that you're asking. So the next question was if we know whether any elementary schools have installed water bottle refill stations. I know that water bottle refill stations are becoming more popular. For example, in Saskatoon here, our police station has one. I don't know too much about which schools have them. I know I've seen them somewhere, I think at a local school. I'm not placing it in my mind where I was exactly. I know that our one of our board members in Nova Scotia, her school has a water bottle refill station, but it is a high school. But I'm sure that wherever they get placed, that they'll be useful and used hopefully, and a lot less water bottles will be, non-refillable water bottles will be used. Okay, so I'm going to let Tim wrap things up, and we will actually have 2 webinars before Christmas for planning, but they won't be really about learning about different parts of the competition. There'll be 4 questions about projects, or about the reports or about things like that. So we're planning on having one at the beginning of November, and I think the other one would be the beginning of December. Anyway, in 3 weeks and 3 weeks from then. So there will be lots of chance to come in here and to ask questions about your projects. But I think that if you have questions about like water in general, then it'd be good to set up a separate session for your students. I'm going to let Tim wrap things up.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for joining us today. And if you have any, I'm glad to see that you guys are excited about talking about this stuff because we're pretty excited about it too. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to email or call. Email me at takingaction@safewater.org. And you can send me any questions you have about water or the project, how to get started, and next steps and stuff like that. And we hope to have a lot more specific resources available soon to help you focus your efforts and come up with a great report. And we'll keep you posted on that, and they should be on our website. Okay, so do we think the refill station would be a good goal for a school to conserve water? It is a good way to conserve water in one sense, that you're not taking water from a different source from where water is bottled. So I'm not an expert on bottled water too much, but if you're taking it from one place and then it's going somewhere else, you might be depleting one source more than you should be. Maybe Nicole has more to say about the bottled water thing, but it's definitely a good goal, especially for cutting down on the bottle producing, making plastic bottles and the impacts there. So I don't know, Nicole, do you have?
Yeah. So So basically the point of the water bottle refill stations is so that it's convenient for students so that they can refill reusable water bottles rather than buying bottled water. With bottled water, there's a few problems. The plastic that's used to make the bottle is oil, and it takes water to produce oil. And then it's also being shipped. It's also making water into a commodity, so not being a public good, not being a human right, but more so being something that people purchase, people who have money purchase. And then also the transportation of the bottles and moving water from one location to another location, sometimes from a location where there is not very much water. For example, there's a big problem in BC right now. I suggest that you look into that. That would be interesting, Nestle and BC. To maybe another area that has fine drinking water. But in terms of so I think like in terms of conserving water, it's more in that sense. Getting people to use the tap water, the filtered tap water instead of the bottled water. They might still be consuming the same amount of water, hopefully even more water if it's good for them to consume more water. But it's more so the virtual water and the transportation and things like that. And everything that you use every day, like you go to the store, you buy a sweater, you think you're buying a sweater. Well, it took water to make that sweater possible. And if you do win the competition, you will receive installed into your school a water bottle refilling station. So therefore, like if you win the contest, you will get one. You also get refillable water bottles for your school and some of our educational kits. Okay, you're welcome, and you have a good rest of your day. As you know, you can email or phone us at any time if you have any questions. And we're going to have 2 question sessions before Christmas for people who are coming in, doing projects to come in and ask questions about their project.